In the previous episode, Han Li traveled all the way to the extreme western lands and finally met the Great Development Divine Lord, the creator of the Great Development art. Yet fate was cruel. He had failed during his attempt to break through to the deity transformation stage, his lifespan exhausted, leaving behind only a strand of divine sense attached to a puppet. One was a mortal cultivating immortality, calculating every retreat. The other was an old monster who had lost his physical body yet still retained his pride. And yet, after some negotiation, Han Li still managed to persuade him to follow along. Then, just as his heart loosened slightly from obtaining such a great opportunity, he was struck by a cold blade. Chen Chaoqian had passed away after her lifespan ran out. Han Li did not cry out, nor did he fall into grief. He merely fell silent, forcing everything down into the depths of his heart. From that moment on, the path ahead of him became even colder and even clearer. Cultivation waits for no one, and feelings cannot save anyone either. Han Li spotted Wanling Mountain from afar. The scenery outside was more open than he had imagined. Thin miasma, green trees, mountain ridges, stretching one after another. It was not the kind of grandeur that crushed people, but it possessed a kind of vastness that naturally put one on guard. A long black line extended endlessly, like the mouth of a gigantic beast lying in wait, silently waiting for the greedy to step inside. Notably, Han Li was in no hurry at all. He slowed down, closed his eyes, and swept his divine sense across more than 100 li. This was a life-saving habit. See one step ahead. Avoid death one step ahead. And then he noticed two cultivators, one old and one young, sitting and chatting on a small hill. One was a mid-foundation establishment cultivator, the other a youth at the 5th or 6th layer of Qi refinement, and they dared to linger near Wanling Mountain at this time? That alone revealed something. Fallen Devil Valley was like a magnet, drawing people in, even those so weak they should not have appeared. And such people were sometimes sources of information, sometimes traps, and sometimes nothing more than nameless corpses in the future. Han Li did not waste words. He asked for directions to the nearest market town. His voice was cold, the pressure pressing down so heavily that the old man could only respond respectfully. Once he had his answer, Han Li vanished. This scene looked simple, but it was a very characteristic display of Han Li's mortal nature. Before entering a dangerous place, one must first have supplies. He did not charge straight into the mountains like those blindly confident fools. He went to buy what he needed, and only then planned the next step. Sure enough, the newly opened market was crudely built with petrification arts and sparsely populated. Han Li entered, purchased a large amount of materials, and immediately left, flying straight into the mountains. The miasma thickened. He casually chose a small hill to descend upon, excavated a temporary cave abode, set up 2 concealment formations, released Silvermoon to cultivate, and let the heaven-ending devil corpse sink into the earth within a dark, sealed chamber. At this point, one could see Han Li's multi-layered approach to safety. He was not only stronger himself, but had also prepared guards, tools, hiding places, and escape routes. Silvermoon stood watch. The heaven-ending devil corpse served as a surprise killing card. The concealed cave abode reduced the risk of disturbance. And most importantly, he locked himself away in seclusion to refine something that could save his life in Fallen Devil Valley. What was he refining? Core Formation Puppets 2 types, recorded in jade slips given by the Great Development Divine Lord. The first was the giant turtle puppet. Absurdly strong in defense, able to withstand 3 strikes from a nascent soul cultivator, and capable of spewing thunderfire spheres with the full force power of a mid-core formation cultivator. The price was that it was bulky and slow. Once pressed in close, it became a sitting target. The second was the Fox Demon Puppet. No long-range attacks and only average defense, but its speed was like the wind. Its twin tiger claws could extend half a foot, tearing through the protective barriers of ordinary core formation cultivators as easily as ripping paper. This type specialized in close combat against those who relied on defensive shields. If it were someone else, they would choose one optimal type. But Han Li was different. He decided to refine both, making a moderate number of each. Why? Because Fallen Devil Valley was not a fair battlefield. Anything could happen there. Sometimes one needed a shield to block head-on. Sometimes one needed a blade to charge in and finish the kill. And Han Li refused to bind himself to a single option. For 3 days and nights, he sat motionless in study. Then he began refining. Mountains of materials were consumed. He selected jet black ironwood, and the door of seclusion closed for several months. During that time, the area outside Wanling Mountain grew lively. As the miasma thinned, more cultivators poured in. Temporary cave abodes sprang up everywhere. Some discovered Han Li's cave and even came to pay visits, tossing sound transmission talismans, but received no response. None of them dared to force their way in. And this was a very real point. The cultivation world lacked neither bullies nor tyrants, but everyone feared provoking a hidden powerhouse. Someone in seclusion near Fallen Devil Valley who refused visitors could very well be an old monster preparing secret methods. No one wanted to form enmity for no reason right before entering the #1 perilous land. While most cultivators formed groups to increase their chances of survival, Han Li remained Han Li, traveling alone but prepared with strength and calculation. That was his style. Trust no one, trust himself, trust what he made with his own hands. When the miasma was nearly gone, Silvermoon judged it time to call him out of seclusion so as not to miss the opportunity. Han Li stepped out, calm, as if he had never closed himself away for months. The result of his seclusion: more than 30 core formation puppets, evenly divided between turtle forms and fox demons. The key was that he possessed a large quantity of high-grade demon beast soul essences from the Sea of Chaotic Stars. Without those, even sufficient materials would have been useless. Even the Great Development Divine Lord, upon seeing the pile of high-grade demon souls, could not help but exclaim, "Little monster." It sounded like praise, but there was also a hint of unease. Han Li was not the type of genius who erupted suddenly. He was the type who accumulated steadily until it seemed unreasonable. Other cultivators would rejoice after obtaining 1 or 2 treasures, while he had an entire stockpile, yet still maintained the caution of someone who lacked everything. After finishing up, he checked the heaven-ending devil corpse, retrieved it, then gathered Silvermoon back into his sleeve and left the cave abode. But he did not depart immediately. Sitting atop the mountain peak, he swept his divine sense across 100 li radius, probing cave abodes, gathering spots, and powerful auras. What was frightening was this: with divine sense at this level, even early-stage nascent soul cultivators would not notice they were being probed. This meant Han Li was effectively seeing the entire map, while most others could only see their immediate surroundings. Yet he still did not find the person he was looking for. Thus, he flew to a nearby market town, one opened by a family from Donghua Kingdom, specializing in selling materials and information to cultivators preparing to enter Fallen Devil Valley. And right here, his fortune, or more precisely, his connection, appeared. Inside a medicine shop, a man and a woman from the Tianji sect had just purchased golden spirit fruit and were rejoicing. The man was Bai Shujun, someone Han Li had encountered years ago. Han Li appeared to block their path and tossed out a Tianji token. With just a single token, the aura was completely different. Bai Shujun immediately realized that the person before him was no longer the newly advanced early nascent soul cultivator of back then, but an existence that compelled him to bow his head at once. Han Li spoke directly. He wanted to meet his master, Lu Weiying. No pleasantries, no inquiries, no detours. This was very Han Li. If he needed something, he took it immediately. Time was life. Bai Shujun led the way, and the three flew off. They eventually arrived at a small mountain peak, tightly concealed by minor restrictions. A sound transmission talisman flew into the stone wall. Ripples spread, and a stone door opened. Lu Weiying personally transmitted a message inviting Han Li inside, while simultaneously driving Bai Shujun and the Lu surnamed woman outside. Private discussion, meaning what was about to be said, was not simple. Inside the main hall, Han Li met Lu Weiying and Marquis Nanlong. The two had sent people to search for him for over a month without success, as Han Li had been in seclusion and kept his movements ghost-like. Marquis Nanlong smiled bitterly as he mentioned Han Li's reputation. His border exploits, killing even a mid-nascent soul cultivator from a demonic sect, rumors that left everyone doubtful. Han Li replied in the most textbook manner, humble, attributing his achievements to luck, claiming no great ability. But the clever part was this: he was not being humble out of etiquette, but because he did not want others to accurately gauge his worth. In the cultivation world, nothing was more dangerous than being thoroughly read. The more others understood you, the easier it was to die. Then they got to the main matter. Lu Weiying asked directly whether Han Li had decided to cooperate entering Fallen Devil Valley, together with the two of them, to join forces in killing the ancient fire toad beast and seizing the treasures beside the remains of an ancient cultivator. Han Li agreed that the opportunity was worthwhile, but he did not nod immediately. He asked the most important question: how would the treasures be divided? Lu Weiying said they would be split evenly among the three, fair and reasonable. Han Li then put forward a second condition. He wanted the fire toad beast's inner core. The two agreed almost instantly, with barely any hesitation. There was a very clear scent here. They needed Han Li badly enough to be willing to give up the inner core. Either the inner core was not their goal, or their true objective was far greater, to the point that the inner core was merely a fringe benefit. Seeing their ready agreement, Han Li finalized it. He would go with them, but he still added a very clear-headed remark: only by joining forces do we have a chance of returning alive. It sounded like courtesy, but in truth it was a reminder to himself: do not forget the path to survival for the sake of profit. Then Marquis Nanlong revealed a grudge. If the Ghost Spirit Sect obtained the Two Polarity Ring, he would kill whoever took it, meaning they had suffered badly at the hands of the Ghost Spirit Sect last time. Han Li followed up by asking what they thought about the Ghost Spirit Sect providing the method to enter the valley. Marquis Nanlong sneered, saying the spread of information had been deliberately arranged by them. The purpose was to draw more people in, both to conceal the trio's movements and to avoid being besieged by the Ghost Spirit Sect. But Lu Weiying added a highly noteworthy point. They had not expected the Ghost Spirit Sect to dare sell the Fallen Devil tokens to various sects. It was a high-level move selling tokens to make the world owe them favors, drawing everyone into the valley to scout the way and reduce their own risk. They might not monopolize all the treasures, but in exchange, the danger dropped sharply. Han Li summed it up in his own style: perfection does not exist. And the one truly calling the shots in the Ghost Spirit Sect must hate the two of them to the bone. Marquis Nanlong said they would let the Ghost Spirit Sect swallow the bitterness for now and settle accounts after leaving the valley. After that, the three discussed their plan for entering the valley. 3 days later, the miasma of Wanling Mountain completely dissipated. Cultivators surged toward Fallen Devil Valley. And at this moment, Fallen Devil Valley truly lived up to its name as the #1 perilous land. The sky around the valley was filled with countless restrictions. There was only a single entrance, a passage more than 10 jang wide, but right at the gate were spatial rifts. These rifts were the real nightmare. Some were large enough to swallow dozens of people. Some were as small as floating knife blades. Some were so faint as to be invisible. And most terrifying of all, they were not fixed, opening and closing without any pattern. Many cultivators died right at the entrance, including nascent soul cultivators. But this time, the world was in an uproar over the news that the Ghost Spirit Sect had a way to bring people in safely. Fallen Devil tokens were sold out, while those without tokens tried to mix in and gamble on luck. At the same time, the scene of a grand gathering of heroes unfolded. A woman in green robes came to report, and a long-bearded old man calmly instructed her to continue monitoring the Ghost Spirit Sect, his demeanor suggesting he was waiting for others to make the first move. A Taoist arrived with 2 ancient ghost puppets possessing strength on par with nascent soul cultivators, confident of his harvest. 3 streaks of escape light appeared: Ancestor Linghu of Yellow Maple Valley, the Grand Elder of Masked Moon Sect, and a rough, unfamiliar old man. This lineup alone was enough to make others keep their distance. As for Han Li, he had already reached the vicinity of the valley entrance, standing atop a hill and observing. He knew that over 100 cultivators had gathered here, with many nascent soul old monsters lying in ambush. He reminded himself that aside from the 3 great cultivators and the Molan Divine Masters, there were still plenty of dangerous figures. One careless move meant death. He tried probing into the valley with his divine sense, but after only 100 jang, it was blocked by restrictions. He could have forced his way through, but in the end, he withdrew his divine sense. This was an extremely terrifying aspect of Han Li. He had the ability, yet did not gamble out of confidence. Fallen Devil Valley was a place where strength did not guarantee survival, only caution offered a chance. Half a day passed when a cry suddenly rang out. The Molan people had arrived. A massive flying chariot covered in silvery light, dense with talismans, descended. More than 10 Molan spellcasters stood solemnly upon it. Leading them was the Trong surnamed scholar, a late-stage nascent soul Molan Divine Master, and a Yu surnamed woman skilled in ancient arts. Han Li vaguely understood. With someone like Trong present, ordinary Tianan cultivators would not dare take revenge lightly. But a bigger question still loomed. Why had the 3 great cultivators allowed the Molan people to appear here? Some kind of tacit approval existed, and it could not be a small matter. Before things could settle, more than 100 streaks of escape light appeared on the horizon. The Ghost Spirit Sect. 3 nascent soul cultivators led them. Among them was Wang Tiangu, and Han Li also saw Wang Chan and Yan Ruyan. Wang Chan's limbs were intact, while Yan Ruyan looked haggard, prompting Han Li to briefly think of old wounds. But what drew his attention more were the other 2 nascent soul cultivators. One was a middle-aged man in black robes with the bearing of someone in power. The other was an old man with hawk-like eyes and dense killing intent, clearly a mid-nascent soul cultivator. Broken Soul True Person hasn't arrived, yet another unfamiliar mid-nascent soul cultivator has appeared. Han Li immediately sensed that the Ghost Spirit Sect's preparations were far from simple. The Ghost Spirit Sect began setting up an enormous teleportation formation. Everyone stood at a distance to watch, each making their own calculations. Then, a variable shocked the entire field. A streak of white rainbow light tore through the air, dispersing clouds and mist. The figure that appeared was Wei Wuhai. Just hearing the name was enough to throw the surrounding cultivators into turmoil. Even more shocking was that Wei Wuhai descended before the Ghost Spirit Sect and was warmly welcomed by the middle-aged man in black robe. Wei Wuhai replied coldly, he had come as promised, but if there was no that thing inside the valley as agreed, he would turn hostile. That vague phrase, "that thing," carried immense weight. It indicated that the Ghost Spirit Sect was using bait powerful enough to draw even a Grand Elder of the Nine Kingdoms Alliance into the game. This meant that this trip into Fallen Devil Valley was not merely a scramble where whoever is faster gets it, but a match in which the one behind the scenes had placed a very deep wager. Watching this, Han Li immediately understood that his risk had skyrocketed. If he clashed with the Ghost Spirit Sect inside the valley and Wei Wuhai intervened, his only option would be to flee. This was an unforeseen variable, and Han Li hated variables most of all. He also glanced at the Trong surname scholar. If there were no other late-stage nascent soul cultivators present, then the two strongest figures here were Wei Wuhai and Trong, two opposing extremes, two rival forces, yet both appearing at the same valley entrance. Just thinking about it revealed the undercurrents. The Ghost Spirit Sect continued setting up the formation. Half a day later, the array was complete. It resembled an ancient teleportation formation, but had been modified, simplified in some areas, and made more complex in others. Even with his understanding of formations, Han Li could not identify its origins. Then came the moment that made everyone hold their breath. Wang Tiangu stepped into the center, opened a jade box, and took out a strange golden spirit stone. Cries rang out. High-grade spirit stone? The entire crowd was shaken. Han Li's expression also changed. High-grade spirit stones were nearly extinct in Tianan. Even exchanging 1,000 mid-grade stones might not yield one. They were items capable of activating ancient formations and of supplying spiritual power to nascent soul cultivators during combat. And Han Li had killed quite a few people without ever seeing a single one. Yet the Ghost Spirit Sect placed it directly into the formation. Such an action meant only one thing. They valued Fallen Devil Valley enough to burn a priceless treasure. The benefits inside, or their true objective, were certainly no small matter. After that, the Ghost Spirit Sect cultivators simultaneously took out pale golden formation flags and flew up to arrange a bizarre combination of flags above the formation. Their movements were smooth and practiced, clearly rehearsed countless times. Han Li looked at the middle-aged man in black robes, a question arising in his heart. Could he be the sect master of the Ghost Spirit Sect? After all, Wang Tiangu's cultivation was not inferior, yet his attitude was exceedingly respectful. And just as that question still hung in the air, this segment came to a temporary close. In this episode, the most important point was not whether Han Li had entered the valley yet, but that he had seen the true picture of the game. Fallen Devil Valley was no longer a place for the brave to enter, but a stage where major powers, old monsters, Molan Divine Masters, and the Ghost Spirit Sect were all setting their pieces at once. Han Li had prepared thoroughly. Core formation puppets, the heaven-ending Devil Corpse, Silver Moon, and cooperation with Lu Weiying and Marquis Nanlong. Yet the appearance of a single name Wei Wuhai, combined with the placement of a high-grade spirit stone into the formation, was enough to show that there were things inside the valley he might not be able to control. And as the Ghost Spirit Sect completed the grand formation and raised the formation flags, a sense of unease began to cling to everyone standing outside. Because the entrance to the #1 perilous land was about to open, but what awaited inside might not be only spatial rifts. It might also be a far greater, deeper trap slowly closing its jaws.